picture a small wooden bench in a brick factory in Orange, New Jersey, in the spring of 1917, where a young woman in a cotton dress lifts a tiny brush to her lips and shapes the bristles into a fine, wet point. Before we go any further into this story, if you want a brand new American mystery every single night, subscribe. One tap and a new story is waiting for you every evening. Her name might have been Grace. It might have been Mollie. It might have been Catherine. There were hundreds of them in those years, sitting shoulder to shoulder in long rows under tall factory windows. The light through the glass fell soft and yellow on their hands. Each woman held a small ceramic dish of pale green paint, thick as cream, that shimmered like nothing else on earth. The paint had a name. The men in the offices called it undark. The women just called it the stuff. It was made of glue, water, and a dust so rare and so costly that a single gram was worth more than a house. That dust was radium, and it glowed. Watch the room from the doorway, and you would see it. By day, the paint looked harmless, like a smear of sea foam on the rim of the dish. By night, when the foreman flipped the switch and the bulbs went dark, the whole factory came alive. The dishes glowed. The brushes glowed. The dials lined up on the workbenches glowed in soft green rings, like small moons floating in a black pool. The women glowed too. Their fingertips, their lips, the dust caught in their hair, and the buttons of their dresses. When they walked home through the streets of Orange after their shift, people would turn and stare, because the girls from the factory shimmered in the dusk like fireflies in human shape. They were proud of it. They wore their best dresses to work, so the dust would settle on the fabric, and they could dance under the street lamps and shine. They painted their nails with it for parties. They touched it to their teeth as a joke, to grin in dark hallways. One girl, the story goes, painted a thin line of it across her eyelids on a Saturday night, just to see what her boyfriend would say. The work itself was simple. A watch dial would come down the line. The woman would dip her tiny camel hair brush into the green paint, then slip the bristles between her lips to make a sharp point. Lip dip paint. That was the rhythm. Lip dip paint. Hundreds of times a day. Thousands of times a week. The foreman taught them that motion on their very first morning, and the foremen smiled when they did it well. Nobody told them what radium was. Nobody told them where it came from, or what it did inside a body, or why the men who handled it in the back rooms wore long lead aprons and held it with iron tongs. The women were given brushes and dishes and a bench. The men were given armor. And here, on this small wooden bench in this small brick building, a mystery begins. Because somewhere in those offices, in those drawers, in those quiet letters passed between company men, somebody already knew. Somebody knew what that soft green glow was doing to the bones of the girls who painted it. Somebody had measured it. Somebody had written it down. And somebody had decided that the women on the benches should not be told. The question that sits at the heart of this whole story is not whether radium was dangerous. We know now that it was. The question is older and darker and quieter than that. Who knew, and how early did they know? And what did they do with that knowing while the girls kept lifting brushes to their lips? How many hands signed off on the silence? How many doctors looked away? How many warnings were written and locked in a drawer before the first jaw began to ache, before the first tooth fell into the palm of a girl named Mollie, before the first young woman lay down in a hospital bed in a town that had no idea what was killing her. That is the mystery you have come to sit with tonight. A factory full of glowing women. A paint that lit up the dark like a held breath. And a secret that was already old by the time the first girl noticed her gums had begun to bleed. The glow had come to town, and somebody, somewhere, had known it would. Picture a small city in northern New Jersey in the spring of 1917. The town is called Orange, and it sits a short train ride west of New York. The streets are paved with brick. The houses are wooden, painted in soft greens and dusty whites, with porches sagging under the weight of climbing roses. Horse carts still rattle past Model T cars on the same narrow lanes. The air smells like coal smoke, fresh bread, and the green damp of the Watchung Hills just beyond. This is a working town. Factories puff steam into the morning sky like sleeping giants letting out long breaths. There are hat makers and felt mills and the great Edison labs not far away, where men in dark vests bend over tables and try to invent the future. Somewhere in the middle of all this stands a quiet brick building on Alden Street, 3 stories tall. Tall windows with iron frames, a small sign on the door, United States Radium Corporation. From the outside, it looks like any other plant in town. But inside, something strange is happening. Step through the heavy door. The main work floor is one long open room. Sunlight pours through tall windows and lays itself across rows of wooden tables. The tables are polished smooth by years of elbows and sleeves. At each table sits a young woman in a simple cotton dress. Her hair is pinned up. Her sleeves are rolled to the elbow. In front of her, neat as a school desk, sits a tray of small metal watch faces, a tiny pot of paint, and a thin camel hair brush no bigger than an eyelash. The paint is the reason you are here. It glows. In daylight, it looks like dull yellow-green mud, the color of pond scum or old mustard. But when the lights dim, when a cloud passes over the sun, and the room falls into soft shadow, every pot of paint on every table begins to shine. A pale green light, soft as a firefly, gentle as moonlight under snow. The girls laugh when it happens. They lean their chins on their palms and watch the trays glow like little gardens of stars. Some of them say it looks like the paint is breathing. Outside the windows, the year 1917 is rolling forward in a hurry. The Great War is on. American boys are climbing onto ships bound for France. They carry rifles, packs, helmets, and on their wrists, brand new watches with glowing dials, so they can read the time in the dark of a muddy trench. The army needs millions of them. Airplane gauges too, compass faces, gun sights. Every glowing number on every dial in every soldier's pocket starts here, on Alden Street, painted by the hands of these young women. The factory hires fast. Word goes around the neighborhoods of Orange and East Orange and Newark. Sisters tell sisters. Cousins tell cousins. A girl can earn more here in a week than her father makes in a month at the rail yard. The work is clean. The work is pretty. The boss says the paint is harmless. The boss says it is good for you. Some of the older men in town even buy little jars of the stuff at the drugstore to rub on their joints. Because the newspapers swear radium is a tonic, a fountain of youth, a gift from the deep earth itself. So the girls come. They are 16, 17, 20 years old. They wear white blouses with lace collars and long dark skirts. They carry tin lunch pails packed with sandwiches and apples. They walk to work in groups, arm in arm, laughing under wide-brimmed hats. The streetcar bell rings in the distance. The maples along the sidewalks shake out their first green leaves of the year. Inside the factory, the radio plays soft music from a shelf in the corner. The radiators hiss in winter. In summer, the windows stand wide open and the curtains lift in the warm breeze. The girls dip their brushes. They whisper across the tables. They paint their fingernails with the glowing dust just for fun. They paint their teeth before going out dancing, so their smiles will shine in the dim halls of the ballrooms downtown. They paint little hearts on their cheekbones, tiny moons behind their ears. When they walk home in the evening, the dust on their dresses catches the light of the street lamps. They glow softly as they cross the bridges. Mothers say they look like angels coming home from work. Nobody in Orange yet knows that the angels are already dying. Let's meet them now. Let's sit beside them at the long wooden tables and watch their hands move. Grace Fryer was 18 years old when she took the job. She had soft brown hair she pinned up in the morning before catching the streetcar. Her father worked union jobs in Newark, and she had 2 younger brothers who looked up to her like she was a second mother. Grace had a steady way about her. She walked with her shoulders square and her chin level, the way her father had taught her. At the factory, Grace sat near the window. She liked the light there, the way it fell across the small ceramic dials in front of her. Each morning, she tied her apron, set out her tiny pots of paint, and reached for her camel hair brush. The brush was no thicker than a sewing needle. The bristles came to a fine, soft point, smaller than the tip of a pencil. Beside her sat Edna Hussman, who laughed easy and often. Edna had a round, pretty face and a fondness for Sunday dances. She wore her hair bobbed in the new style, and she traded jokes with the girls down the row in a low whisper because the supervisors did not like chatter. Edna's hands were quick. She could finish a watch face in less than a minute, and she liked the rhythm of it, like piano keys under her fingers. There was Quinta MacDonald, who was Mollie Maggia's sister. There was Albina, another Maggia sister, with the same dark eyes and the same gentle voice. The Maggia girls came from a big Italian family in Orange, New Jersey. And on summer evenings, they walked home together with their arms linked, 3 abreast on the sidewalk. And there was Catherine Schaub. Catherine was a dreamer. She kept a journal. She wrote little verses on the backs of envelopes. She had the kind of pale skin that flushed easy in the cold, and she wore a thin gold chain her grandmother had given her. Catherine had cousins who worked the line too, and aunts and neighbors. The whole neighborhood seemed to send its daughters through the factory doors. Now watch what they did with their hands. This is the heart of it. A girl would dip her brush into the small pot of radium paint. The paint was thick, like cream and pale green in the daylight. She would lift the brush and paint a number on the dial. 1, 2, 3, all the way around the small white face. The numbers were tiny. The lines between them were thinner still. After a few strokes, the bristles would splay out, fan-shaped and clumsy, useless for fine work. So the girl would bring the brush to her lips. She would press the bristles between her tongue and her front teeth, and twist and pull. The brush came out wet and sharp again, pointed like a new pencil. Then back into the paint, then back to the dial, then back to her mouth. Brush, lip, point, brush, lip, point. 100 times an hour, 1,000 times a day. They called it lip pointing. The supervisors had taught them how. The older girls had shown the new girls on their first morning. It was simply the way you did the work. In a single shift, a steady painter could finish 250 dials. Grace could do more. Edna could do more. The pay was good for young women in 1917. Better than the laundries. Better than the shirt factories. A skilled painter took home around $20 a week, which felt like a small fortune. They were proud of the work. They wore their good dresses to the factory because the powder showed up so pretty against dark fabric. They painted their fingernails with leftover radium for parties. Some painted their teeth to flash a glowing smile in a darkened parlor. One girl, the story goes, painted a thin line of radium across her eyebrows before a date, just to see her sweetheart's face when the lights went down. In the evenings, they walked home through Orange, New Jersey, glowing faintly under the street lamps. The dust clung to their hair and their lashes. It settled into the creases of their hands. Mothers would meet them at the door and brush them off on the porch, laughing, telling them they looked like fairies. These were the girls. Grace at her window, Edna with her quick joke, Quinta and Albina walking arm in arm, Catherine writing her quiet verses by lamplight, hundreds of them in factories from New Jersey to Connecticut to Illinois, all of them young, all of them bright, all of them holding the same small brush to the same soft lip. Remember their hands. Remember their faces. The story turns from here. The factory ran on a soft kind of music in those early years. The clack of glass dials being set on wooden trays. The rustle of starched aprons. The low chatter of young women trading gossip across long tables. Sunlight came through the tall windows in slow, dusty beams, and the air smelled faintly of paste and machine oil. And the perfume the girls dabbed behind their ears before the shift began. The bosses called the powder undark. It came in small porcelain cups, fine as flour, gray-white in the cup, but alive with a strange greenish shimmer when the lights went low. The girls would carry their little cups to their stations like waitresses carrying cream. They would mix it with water and a touch of gum arabic, stir it with a glass rod, and watch the paste turn into something that looked almost like wet moonlight. The supervisors told them it was safe. They said it again and again in calm and certain voices, the way a doctor tells a child a shot will not hurt. One foreman liked to wet his finger and dip it in the powder, then lick it off, just to prove the point. The girls laughed. Some of them tried it themselves. A pinch on the tongue tasted like nothing at all, maybe a little chalky, maybe a little metallic. It was, the bosses said, good for the blood. It was a tonic. It was modern. In the drugstores down the street, you could buy radium toothpaste in bright tin tubes. You could buy radium face cream in tiny glass jars with rose pink labels. There was radium butter and radium water and radium chocolate. And a wealthy man in Pittsburgh drank a bottle of radium tonic every morning, the way another man might drink coffee. The newspapers wrote about it like it was sunshine you could pour. Doctors recommended it. Wives asked for it at Christmas. The whole country seemed to glow with the idea of glowing. So, when the girls walked into the dial painting room each morning, they did not see a danger. They saw a wage. They saw a clean, well-lit place to spend the day with their friends. They saw fingers and dresses and shoes that sparkled like fairy dust by the time the whistle blew. They saw boyfriends waiting at the gate and supper at home, and a future bright as any future their mothers had ever dreamed of. The work itself had a rhythm you could fall into like a lullaby. Brush in the mouth, brush in the cup, brush on the dial. 1, 2, 3. Tiny numbers laid down in tiny strokes. A 4 on a wristwatch face, a 6 on an alarm clock, a delicate little arrow on the gauge of a battleship instrument. The dials piled up on trays in neat rows, and the trays moved down the line, and the line moved through the day, and the day moved toward evening with the slow, easy pull of a river going home to the sea. At lunch, the girls ate sandwiches wrapped in waxed paper at the same long tables where they painted. Crumbs fell into the powder. Powder fell onto the bread. Nobody worried. They drank cold milk from glass bottles and traded stories about dances on Saturday nights, about a brother shipping out, about a sister getting married in the spring. Somebody usually had a magazine. Somebody usually had a piece of cake to share. Outside, horses still clopped down the brick streets of Orange, and the new automobiles coughed and rattled past, and the church bell across the square struck the hour with a soft tin voice. When the shift ended, the girls walked out into the evening light with their hair powdered in faint dust, with their teeth a little brighter than other people's teeth, with their fingertips holding a memory of shimmer that would still be visible after dark. They walked home in groups, arm in arm, laughing. They passed under street lamps that buzzed and flickered. They climbed the wooden steps of boarding houses kissed their mothers on the cheek and washed their hands at the kitchen sink. In the bedroom, with the curtains drawn and the gas lamp turned low, a girl might lift her hand in the dark and see her own fingers glowing back at her like little stars. She might smile. She might think it was beautiful. She might think, in that quiet moment before sleep, that she was the luckiest girl in New Jersey, painting moonlight onto watches for $1 a day, with the whole bright 20th century laid out before her like a long, clean road. The bosses said the powder was safe, and for now, in this gentle hour, everyone believed them. It started with a tooth, not a broken one, not a knocked out one, just a sore tooth, the kind anyone might have on a slow afternoon in the fall of 1921. The woman holding her jaw was named Amelia Maggia, though most people called her Mollie. She lived in Orange, New Jersey, in a small house with thin walls and a kitchen that smelled of bread and coffee. She had sisters. She had a sweetheart. She painted dials for a living. And one Tuesday, while she was eating supper, she felt a sharp pinch along her bottom gum. She put down her fork. She pressed her tongue against the spot and tasted something faintly metal. That was the beginning, though no one in that warm yellow kitchen knew it yet. Orange, New Jersey, in those years, was a town of brick and clapboard. Maple trees lined the streets, their leaves turning the color of rust and butter. Trolleys rattled past corner druggists with painted signs. The air smelled of coal smoke and fallen apples. At night, the street lamps came on slow, glowing soft as candle flames behind frosted glass. It was an ordinary American town in an ordinary American autumn. And Mollie Maggia was an ordinary young woman with an ordinary toothache. She went to her dentist on Main Street, a man named Dr. Bari. His office sat above a tailor shop, up a narrow flight of stairs that creaked under every step. The waiting room had a single window, a rubber plant, and a calendar from a feed store. Mollie sat in the leather chair and opened her mouth, and Dr. Bari tilted the lamp closer. What he saw, he could not name. The tooth itself looked sound, white, mostly straight, not cracked, but the gum around it had gone soft, almost spongy, the way a piece of fruit goes when it has been left too long on the counter. He pressed it gently with the back of an instrument, and the flesh gave way without pain. He frowned. He asked her if she had been sick. She said no. He asked her if she had bitten down on anything hard. She said no. He told her to come back in a week. She went home through streets gone gold with afternoon light. She passed the bakery and the shoe shop and the little park where children fed crusts to the pigeons. She stopped to button her coat against the wind, and as she walked, she ran her tongue along that sore spot again and felt how strange it was. Soft where it should be firm, tender where there should be nothing at all. A week later, the tooth came out in Dr. Bari's hand, not pulled, not yanked. He had only meant to look at it again. He had only touched it, and the tooth lifted free as if it had been resting in wet sand. The root came with it, long and pale and clean. There was no blood for a long moment, then a slow welling, dark as wine. Dr. Bari set the tooth on a small white cloth and stared at it. He had been a dentist for almost 20 years. He had pulled thousands of teeth. He had never seen one come out that way, from a mouth that did not seem sick, from a young woman who did not seem hurt. He asked Mollie again about her work. She told him she painted watch dials at the United States Radium Corporation over on Alden Street. She told him about the small brushes and the green-white powder and the way the bosses said it was safe. She said it as if it were nothing, because to her, it was nothing. It was just her job. It paid better than the laundry. Dr. Bari wrote something down on a small card. He did not tell her what. That night, walking home in the dark, Mollie passed under the street lamps of Orange and felt the wind move through the gap where her tooth had been. The town around her went about its ordinary business. Lights came on in kitchen windows. A dog barked somewhere down the block. A boy on a bicycle rang his bell and disappeared around a corner. And inside Mollie Maggia's jaw, something had begun that no one in Orange had a name for yet. Something quiet, something patient, something that would take its time. She did not know it. Dr. Bari did not know it. The bosses at the factory did not say it, though some of them, in their quieter rooms, had already begun to suspect. The first sign had come, and the town went on as if nothing at all changed. Mollie Maggia was 24 years old when the trouble started. She had soft, dark eyes and a quiet laugh, and she lived in a small frame house on Main Street in Orange, New Jersey. Her sisters worked beside her at the dial plant. 3 of the Maggia girls dipped their brushes in the same little pots. 3 of them came home each night with the same green dust in their hair. It began with a single tooth. Mollie sat in the dentist's chair on a gray afternoon in 1921, and the dentist gave it a gentle pull, and the tooth slid out as easy as a stone from soft mud. He frowned. He looked again. A second tooth wiggled when he touched it. Then a third. Word of that visit moved through Orange the way smoke moves through a cold room. Slow, steady, reaching into every corner. At the corner grocery, the old women leaned over their baskets of onions and whispered. They remembered things. One of them, a widow named Antonia, said her grandmother in the old country had spoken of a mountain glow, a green light that came out of certain stones near certain villages. People who lived near those stones, she said, lost their teeth before they lost their minds. The other women crossed themselves and bought their bread and walked home faster than they meant to. At Murphy's Tavern down by the train tracks, the men talked over warm beer. They were factory men, most of them with rough hands and tired eyes. One of them said he'd known a fellow in the watch trade up in Waterbury who died strange. His gums had gone soft, the man said, like wet paper. Another man laughed and called it nonsense and ordered another round. But the laughter sounded thin. It hung in the smoky air like a coat on a crooked hook. On the church steps after Sunday Mass, the Italian mothers of Orange gathered in their black shawls and spoke in low voices. They had lived through cholera in the old country. They had seen influenza take half a village in a winter. They knew the shape of a thing that moved from house to house. And this, they said, had that shape. Mollie's jaw had begun to swell now. The pain kept her up at night. Her mother sat by her bed with a cool cloth and prayed in the old language her daughter barely remembered. The doctors in Orange were puzzled. One called it rheumatism of the mouth. Another called it phossy jaw, the old sickness that match factory girls used to get from white phosphorus. He said it with the certainty of a man who has found a name and decided the name is the answer. But the match factories were gone. The girls weren't dipping in phosphorus. They were dipping in something the company called safe, something the company called bright and harmless and good. The neighbors brought soup. They brought pots of beans and loaves of soft bread Mollie could chew without pain. Mrs. Rossi, from 2 doors down, said her cousin in Newark knew a woman who'd been cured by a poultice of garlic and pork fat. Mrs. De Angelis said no. It was bone broth and prayer, and only bone broth and prayer. They argued about it in the kitchen while Mollie slept in the next room. Their arguing was its own kind of love. At the dial plant, the girls heard. Of course they heard. Mollie had sat at the long table with them. They had shared cigarettes on the back step at lunch. Now her chair was empty, and the empty chair had a meaning none of them wanted to say out loud. So they painted faster instead. They brought their brushes to their lips and pretended the small twinge in their own gums was nothing. The supervisor walked between the tables and smiled and told them they looked beautiful in the lamplight. The old people in Orange had a saying that came from somewhere none of them could quite remember. They said that some sicknesses walk on quiet feet, that you do not hear them coming, and you do not see them leave, and the only sign they were ever in your house is the empty place at the table. They said it now on the church steps and at the grocery and over the fences between yards. They said it about Mollie. By the autumn of 1922, Mollie Maggia could no longer speak. Her jaw, the doctors finally admitted, had crumbled. It came out of her mouth in pieces, the way old plaster falls from a ceiling that has held up too much rain for too long. To understand how the doctors of Orange, New Jersey, came to shake their heads and shrug their shoulders at a young woman's rotting jaw, you have to walk back through time. Not just to the year before or the decade before, but to the long, quiet century when American medicine and American industry first learned to share a table. They learned to pass each other the salt. They learned to look the other way, long before the radium factory rose on Alden Street. The land around Orange was farm country. green rose toward the watching slopes of the Watchung Mountains. The Lenape people had walked these hills for hundreds of years before the Dutch came with their wagons and their iron tools. The Lenape had a word for the glow that sometimes lifted off the marshes at night, the soft, pale fire that drifted above wet ground. They believed certain lights belonged to the spirits. You did not touch them. You did not breathe them in. You watched them pass, and you let them go. When the settlers arrived, they laughed at such stories. They drained the marshes. They cut the cedars. They built tanneries along the Rahway River, and the river ran brown with hides and lye. The men who worked the vats came home with skin like old leather and coughs that rattled in the dark. Their wives went to the town doctors, and the town doctors wrote down what they were told to write down. Tannery work was good work, steady work. The town needed it. The doctors needed it too, because the tannery owners sat on the church boards and the hospital boards and the boards of the small banks where doctors kept their savings. This was the older pattern. This was the shape that would press itself decades later against the jaws of young women who painted clock faces with glowing dust. By the late 1800s, New Jersey had become a kind of laboratory for the American factory age. Patterson made silk. Newark made beer and leather and celluloid. Trenton made pottery. Each town had its own sickness, and each town had its doctors who knew the sickness by name, but rarely said the name out loud. Hatters in Orange itself had been going mad for generations from the mercury used to felt fur. People in town called them the shaking men. They wandered the streets with trembling hands and slurred speech, and the children watched them from porches with the same wide eyes children give to ghosts. Doctors knew about mercury. Doctors had known since the 1860s, maybe earlier. There were papers written. There were warnings printed in small medical journals that almost nobody read. The mercury kept being used anyway, because the hat trade in Orange was worth too much money to too many important men. The shaking men kept shaking. The doctors kept writing prescriptions for tonics that did nothing. The pattern set itself like concrete poured in a trench. So when radium came to Orange in 1917, the ground was already shaped to receive it. The town practice. The doctors had practice. A young dentist looking at a patient with a strange ulcer in her mouth did not start from nothing. He started from a long inherited habit of looking once, looking away, and reaching for a polite explanation. Phosphorus poisoning, perhaps. Bad teeth. Poor hygiene. Syphilis, whispered carefully behind a closed door so the family could not hear. There was also something older still at work. The American belief in progress. The deep, almost religious faith that whatever was new must be good, and whatever glowed must be holy. Radium was new. Radium was advertised in magazines as a cure for every tired thing in the body. Wealthy men drank radium water from crystal bottles and swore it gave them vigor. Hospitals advertised radium treatments for cancer. Beauty creams contained radium. Toothpaste contained radium. Chocolate bars in Germany contained radium. To stand against this tide, a small-town doctor would have had to be a kind of prophet. He would have had to say no when the whole country was saying yes. He would have had to look at a dying girl and tell the truth, and the truth would have cost him his practice, his friends, his standing in the church, and the quiet evening walks he took with his wife along Main Street under the gas lamps. Most of them did not. Most of them, when the first painters came stumbling into their offices with loose teeth and aching bones, reached for the old comfortable language. They wrote down anemia. They wrote down hysteria. They wrote down anything except the word that was already glowing faintly in the marrow. The letter sat in a desk drawer for years before anyone outside the company laid eyes on it. It was typed on thin paper, the kind that crackled when you held it up to the light. The date on the top corner read 1924. The men who wrote it and the men who read it were not doctors. They were not chemists. They were owners. They were lawyers. They were the quiet sort of men who wore dark suits and kept their hands folded on polished oak tables. The letter spoke plainly. It said the powder might be dangerous. It said the girls in the studio might be getting sick from it. It suggested, in careful words, that something ought to be done. And then it was filed away, like a receipt for something nobody wanted to remember buying. Outside that drawer, the town of of orange kept turning. The street lamps came on at dusk. The factory chimneys breathed pale smoke into the autumn air. The girls walked home with paint still under their fingernails, glowing faintly in the dark like they had touched the moon and brought a little of it back. A man named Cecil Drinker came to look into it. He was a doctor from Harvard, tall and thin, with a quiet voice and steady hands. The company itself had asked him to come. They wanted a clean report. They wanted a paper they could wave in the air and say, "See, everything is fine. Go back to work." Drinker arrived with his wife Catherine, who was also a scientist, and a colleague named William Castle. They walked through the studio. They watched the girls work. They saw the brushes touch the lips. They saw the powder drift through the bars of sunlight. What they found made them go pale. Every girl they tested showed signs of something wrong. Bones that ached, blood that ran thin, mouths that would not heal. The powder was not harmless. It was not a vitamin. It was something else, something the human body did not know how to forgive. Drinker wrote his findings down. He sent the report to the company. He believed, like a careful man believes, that the owners would read it and act. He believed they would close the studio or change the work or warn the girls. He was a doctor. He thought science would speak louder than money. He was wrong. The company took the report and made it disappear. They thanked Drinker for his time. They paid him for his trouble. And then they wrote a new report, one that said the girls were healthy, the studio was safe, and the powder was nothing to worry about. They put Drinker's name on it. They put his signature where he had not signed. They sent it to the state of New Jersey as if it were the truth. When Drinker found out, he was furious. He demanded the false report be corrected. He wrote letters. He made calls. He fought in the quiet way Harvard men fought, with paper and ink and the slow grind of professional anger. But the damage was already done. The state had its document. The company had its cover. And the girls kept dipping their brushes between their lips, day after day, while the men in the suits looked the other way. Other doctors came too. A dentist named Neff had been treating Mollie Maggia before she died. He had seen the jaw crumble. He had pulled the pieces from her mouth and stared at them on his tray. of something he did not understand. He wrote to colleagues. He asked questions. He kept records in a small black book he carried in his coat pocket. A man named Martland, the medical examiner of Essex County, began his own quiet inquiry. He was a heavy man with sharp eyes and a stubborn streak. He listened to Nev. He read what little had been published. He started collecting bones, tissue, hair. He built a case in the basement of his office, file by file, slide by slide, while the company men in their dark suits drank coffee and shuffled paper and pretended he did not exist. The investigation grew, but it grew underground. It moved through letters between doctors. It moved through whispers in hospital hallways. It moved through the careful notes of men and women who knew something was wrong and could not yet prove it loud enough to be heard. And in that desk drawer, the original letter sat, yellowing, forgotten, waiting for someone years later to open it and read the words the company men had written to each other when they thought no one else was listening. There is a part of this story that lives in the soft ground of New Jersey cemeteries. The bosses did not want anyone to go looking. The company men did not want anyone to dig. But people went anyway, quietly, in the early morning hours. And what they saw stayed with them for the rest of their lives. A man named Edward Markley used to tend the graves at Rosedale Cemetery in Orange. He worked there for 40 years, and he told the story only to family. He said that on certain damp nights, when the fog rolled low across the markers, he could see a faint green shimmer near the new stones. It rose from the soil like breath on cold glass. He said it was always near the girls, the young ones, the ones the priests had buried in 1922 and 1923 and 1924. He never told the church. He never told the papers. He told his granddaughter once, sitting on the porch of a small clapboard house, and she remembered every word. A woman named Anna Rudolph lived 3 streets over from the U.S. radium plant. She said her husband worked nights at a print shop, and she would walk home alone after visiting her sister. She passed the cemetery gates at the corner of Washington Street. One October night, she stopped because she thought a lantern had been left burning near the back row. only a soft glow, pale as moonlight on milk, rising from a fresh grave. She said she crossed herself and walked home and never spoke of it until she was 83 years old. The stories piled up in whispers. A boy who delivered ice said he saw the same glow at Laurel Grove. An old grave digger in Newark said he refused to open certain plots without gloves because the bones inside, he claimed, had a strange warmth that did not belong to the dead. He said it like a man describing weather. Matter of fact, quiet, tired. In 1927, a doctor named Harrison Martland did what nobody else was willing to do. He asked the families for permission to exhume the bodies. He needed proof. The company kept saying the girls had died of common things. Syphilis, they whispered. Mouth infections. Poor hygiene. Anything but the powder. Martland needed to hold a bone in his hand and see for himself. The families said yes. They wanted answers more than they wanted peace. A man named Quinton MacDonald's brother was there the night they opened Mollie Maggia's grave. He said he never told his own wife what he saw. He said the lid came off the coffin, and the room in the small mortuary turned a color he had no word for. Not green, not white, something in between, soft and steady, like the inside of a seashell held up to a candle. He said the bones did not look like bones. They looked like lamps. He said he had to sit down on the cold floor and put his head between his knees. Dr. Martland took the bones to a dark room and laid them on a sheet of photographic film. He left them there overnight. In the morning, the film had developed itself. The shapes of the bones were printed on it in perfect detail, glowing white against black. He had never seen anything like it in his life. He wrote in his notes that the bones had taken their own picture. He underlined the words twice. A nurse named Edna Balls was in the room when he showed the film to the family. She said she watched Mollie's sister look at the picture for a long time without speaking. Then the sister put her hand over her mouth and walked out into the hallway and slid down the wall to the floor. Edna said the silence in that hallway was the heaviest silence she had ever felt. She said it was the silence of a person finally being believed. These were the witnesses: a grave keeper, a widow, an ice boy, a brother, a nurse, a doctor with shaking hands, and a sheet of film that should not have been possible. None of them were supposed to know. None of them were supposed to see. The company had counted on the dead staying quiet beneath the dirt. But the dirt could not hold the glow. The graves kept speaking in a soft, pale light that nobody had warned them about. And the people who saw it carried the secret in their pockets for the rest of their lives, waiting for someone, anyone, to ask. Grace Fryer was the kind of young woman who paid attention. She had soft, brown hair and steady hands, and a memory that held onto small things. She had worked at the United States Radium Corporation in Orange, New Jersey, from 1917 to 1920. She painted watch dials for soldiers going off to the Great War. She left the factory healthy, or so she believed. 2 years after she stopped working there, her teeth began to ache. Then one of them came loose in her mouth, just like that, as if the root had simply let go. A few weeks later, another tooth followed. Her jaw began to swell along the lower line, hot to the touch and tender as a bruised plum. She went to dentist after dentist, and none of them could explain what they saw. By 1925, Grace had heard the whispers. Mollie Maggia was dead. Other girls from the studio were sick. Some had died already. Some were dying slow in upstairs bedrooms, in little wooden houses up and down Alden Street. Grace started doing something the company had not expected. She started writing names down. She wrote the names on a sheet of paper at her kitchen table, under a yellow lamp, with the radio playing low. Beside each name, she wrote a date. The date the girl had started at the factory. The date she had left. The date her teeth began to fall out. The date she died, if she had died. And as Grace looked at her own handwriting, she saw the shape begin to form. The dates rhymed. The girls who had worked the longest got sick the soonest. The girls who had worked the brush hardest, the ones who pointed their tips most often between their lips, were the ones now lying in dark rooms with bandaged jaws. Some of them had never met each other. Some had worked different shifts, in different years, in different parts of the studio. But the pattern stitched itself together across all of them, like a quilt made by one quiet hand. Grace took the list to to a doctor in Newark. He looked at it for a long time. He said he could not help her. She took it to another doctor. He said the same. She took it to a third, a fourth, a fifth. The men in white coats handed the paper back across their desks and looked at the wall behind her head. Some of them, she suspected, already knew. Some of them had taken money from the company to keep quiet. One had written a report saying the girls were perfectly healthy, even after examining women whose jawbones were crumbling like old chalk. Grace folded her list and put it back in her purse and walked out into the cold New Jersey air. And the streetlights came on one by one along the wet pavement. She decided she needed a lawyer. This was not a thing women did easily in 1925. A woman walking into a law office alone was a strange sight, and Grace knew it. She wore her best coat, a dark wool one with a velvet collar, and pinned her hair carefully under a small felt hat. She rode the train into the city. She climbed the stairs of office buildings with marble floors and brass railings. She knocked on door after door. Most of the lawyers turned her away. Some laughed gently and offered her a glass of water. Some said the United States Radium Corporation was too big, too rich, too well connected. Some said no court in America would take the word of a young woman against a company that supplied the army. Some said she had no proof at all, only a piece of paper with names on it. Grace kept knocking. For 2 years, she kept knocking. She wrote letters. She rode trains. She sat in waiting rooms with the list folded inside her glove. And while she searched, more names had to be added. Hazel Vincent, Albina Laris, Edna Hussman, Quinta MacDonald, who was Mollie Maggia's own sister, now sick herself with the same crumbling jaw. The pattern was no longer something only Grace could see. It was something the dead were writing themselves, name by name, across the headstones of Rosedale Cemetery and Holy Sepulchre. Each new grave was another date that rhymed with the others. Each new grave was another stitch in the quilt. Somewhere in a quiet office in Newark, in the spring of 1927, a young lawyer named Raymond Barry finally took the folded paper out of Grace Fryer's hand. He read it slowly. He set it down on his desk, and he looked up at her and said, said yes. Grace Fryer found her four. They came together slowly, the way iron filings drift toward a magnet they cannot see. Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, Quinta MacDonald, and Albina Laris. 5 women in all. 5 who had once sat at the long wooden benches in Orange, New Jersey, brushing numbers onto watch faces. 5 who had laughed together in the lunchroom. 5 who now walked with limps, or held handkerchiefs to their mouths, or felt their jawbones move when they pressed their tongues against their teeth. They met in living rooms with the curtains half drawn. Soft afternoon light fell across worn carpets and quiet upright pianos. Quinta MacDonald arrived on crutches, her hip wrapped in cloth, her face thin as a paper kite. Albina, her sister, came behind her, slower still, leaning on a cane carved from dark cherry wood. Edna Hussman could barely climb the porch steps. Catherine Schaub, the youngest of them, sat in a stiff chair with her hands folded, her cheeks hollow as spoons. Grace did most of the talking at first. She had found a lawyer named Raymond Barry. He was young, barely past 30, with a soft voice and round wire glasses that fogged when he leaned in clothes. He had agreed to take the case on contingency, which meant the women paid nothing unless they won. He told Grace plainly that he did not know if they could win. The companies were powerful. The doctors were already lined up against them. The clock was ticking, and the clock was inside their own bones. The 5 women signed papers on a kitchen table in May of 1927. The light through the window was the color of weak tea. Outside, the dogwoods were dropping their last petals onto the brick walk. Each woman set her name down in slow, careful script. Quinta's hand shook so badly that Albina had to steady her wrist. Catherine pressed so hard the pen tore the paper. They were suing the United States Radium Corporation for $250,000 each. The number meant little to them. What mattered was that someone, somewhere, would have to stand in a courtroom and say out loud what the powder had done. The papers landed on desks in New York and New Jersey within the week. Reporters got hold of the story by summer. They came to the houses of the 5 women with notebooks and flashbulb cameras, and they wrote down what they saw. They saw Quinta in a wheelchair, her husband had built from spare parts. They saw Edna lying on a horsehair couch, unable to lift her head from the pillow. They saw Grace, still upright, still walking, though her spine had begun to curve like a question mark. They saw Albina, who could no longer hold a fork. They saw Catherine, who would smile only on one side of her face because the other side would not move. The newspapers called them the 5 women doomed to die. The headlines ran in heavy black ink across the front pages. Reporters wrote in long, flowery sentences about the tragedy of it, the cruelty of it, the strange and quiet courage of women who knew they would not live long enough to spend a single dollar of any settlement. The story spread from New Jersey to Boston to Chicago to San Francisco. Letters arrived at Raymond Barry's office from strangers in small towns, enclosing dimes and dollar bills, pressed flowers, prayer cards. The trial was set for January of 1928. The 5 women had 8 months to wait. 8 months to keep breathing. 8 months for their bones to keep doing whatever it was their bones were doing inside them in the dark. Doctors came to examine them and went away shaking their heads. One physician, a man named Harrison Martland, took x-rays that showed the bones lit up like lanterns on the film. He told a colleague quietly in the hallway outside his office that he had never seen anything like it in 20 years of medicine. The women waited. Grace sat by her window in the evenings and watched the street lamps come on along Main Street. Quinta lay in her bed and listened to her children playing in the yard below. Edna prayed the rosary, the beads cool between her fingers. Catherine wrote letters to her cousin in Newark, in handwriting that grew smaller and tighter with each page. Albina sang old hymns under her breath while her sister slept beside her. They had refused to disappear. They had put their names on paper. Whatever happened next, the world would have to look at them. Now we travel west, past the smokestacks of New Jersey, past the wheat fields of Indiana, all the way to a small town in northern Illinois called Ottawa. The year is 1922. Ottawa sits along the Illinois River, a quiet place of red brick buildings and tall elm trees that line the streets like sleeping giants. The river runs slow, and brown through the heart of town. In the summer, the air smells of cut grass and warm stone. And right there, on the corner of Columbus and Superior Street, stood the old high school. A handsome two-story building with arched windows and white trim, its bell tower rising above the roofs like a small church steeple. The school had moved to a new home, and the building sat empty for a while. Then a company came to town and bought it. They called themselves Radium Dial. The company turned the old school into a factory. They kept the wide hallways and the tall ceilings. They kept the chalk-dusted classrooms where children had once practiced their letters. And in those very same rooms, they set up long wooden tables. They laid out trays of tiny watch faces. They handed each new worker a small camel hair brush and a porcelain dish of glowing green paint. The young women of Ottawa came in droves. Farm girls in cotton dresses, daughters of coal miners, sisters and cousins and best friends from down the street. The pay was good, 8 cents a dial, and a fast girl could paint 250 dials in a day. That was real money in Ottawa in 1922. Enough to buy your mother a new washing machine. Enough to save for a wedding dress. Catherine Wolfe was one of them. So was Charlotte Purcell, and Pearl Payne, and Marie Rossiter. They sat together in the bright second-floor studio, where sunlight came through the tall windows in long golden bars. They dipped their brushes. They touched the bristles to their lips to make a fine point, just like the women in New Jersey had been taught. Lip, dip, paint. Lip, dip, paint. The rhythm of it became as natural as breathing. And here is the impossible detail, the thing that should not be. By 1925, the news from Orange, New Jersey, had already broken. Mollie Maggia was dead. Grace Fryer had found her lawyer. Doctors in the East were writing papers about jaw necrosis and radium poisoning. The story was in the Newark papers. It was in medical journals. Men in suits at the United States Radium Corporation already knew, in private, what the powder did to the women who painted with it. And yet, in Ottawa, Illinois, the work went on. The brushes still went to the lips. The girls still licked the points. The bosses still walked the floor and told them the paint was harmless. They told told them the New Jersey story was a lie cooked up by greedy lawyers. They told them eating a little radium was good for you, like a tonic. Some company doctors even said it would put roses in their cheeks. The new girls were never warned. The old girls were never told the truth. The women kept dipping their brushes and shaping the points with their tongues, year after year, while the men who hired them already knew where it would lead. That is the part that does not fit. That is the part that sits in the chest like a cold stone. The studio itself was a beautiful place if you only looked at it. The wood floors had been waxed smooth by generations of schoolchildren. The radiators hissed in the winter. In the summer, the windows opened wide and the river breeze rolled through. The dust on the tables glittered when the sun hit it just right. Tiny green stars floating in the air, settling on hair and eyelashes, and the collars of cotton blouses. The girls walked home each evening glowing softly. Their dresses shimmered. Their hands left faint prints on doorknobs. Children chased after them in the street, marveling. The light on their skin looked like fairy dust, like something out of a storybook. And every grain of that dust was a small clock, a clock counting down inside the bones of every young woman who carried it home. Nobody told them. That is the thing to hold in your mind. The men at Radium Dial knew. They had read the same reports the New Jersey men had read. They sat in their offices and looked at the numbers, and then they walked out onto the studio floor and watched the girls touch the brushes to their tongues and said nothing. In Ottawa, Illinois, the town did not want to believe. That is the simple truth of it. Catherine Wolfe, Donohue lived on a quiet street lined with elm trees and small white houses, and she sat by her window most afternoons in the last years of her life. The window faced east. The morning light came in soft and yellow, and the lace curtains moved when the breeze pushed through. Catherine sat there because her bones hurt too much to walk far. She sat there because she could see her neighbors pass by, and she could wave, and some of them waved back. But some of them did not. That is the part the story does not always tell. The skeptics in Ottawa were not bad people. They were her neighbors. They had known Catherine since she was a girl in pigtails, They had gone to the same church. Their husbands worked at the radium dial company too, or knew men who did, or owned the small shops that depended on the factory paychecks. And here is what they said, plain and reasonable, over coffee in their kitchens. They said Catherine had always been sickly. They said her cousins had been sickly too. They said sometimes a body just breaks down, and that the doctors had names for those things, names that had nothing to do with the factory. They said the company had been in town for years, and most of the girls who painted dials were fine, walking around, married, raising children. If the paint was poison, they asked, why was it only a handful who got sick? Why not all of them? It was a fair question. It is still a fair question. The skeptics had numbers on their side, or so they thought. Hundreds of women had worked the dials in Ottawa. Only a small group had fallen ill. The bosses pointed to that arithmetic and called it proof. The newspapers in nearby towns printed quiet stories that suggested the women were chasing money. There was a depression on. People were hungry. A settlement could feed a family for years. So the talk went in low voices, in barbershops, and on porches. And there was something else. Radium had been sold as medicine. You could buy it in bottles at the drugstore. Wealthy men drank radium water for their health. Rich women dabbed radium cream on their cheeks to make them glow. If radium was killing the dial painters, the skeptics said, then why were the rich not dropping dead too? Why were the doctors still prescribing it? The whole country could not be wrong. That was their logic. And on paper, it almost held together. But then you had to look at Catherine in the window seat. You had to actually look. By the summer of 1937, she weighed 71 pounds. Her jaw had crumbled. Pieces of bone came out in her hand when she touched her own face. She kept the pieces in a small envelope on her dresser. She could not lift her arm to brush her hair. Her hip had broken simply from the act of sitting down. Her husband Tom carried her from the bed to the chair and back again. He was a thin man, and she was small as a sparrow, and still it took everything he had. The skeptics could explain a sore tooth. They could explain a sick cousin. They could explain the bad luck of one woman or two. They could not explain Catherine. They could not explain why she and the other Ottawa women had all done the same job, with the same brush, with the same lip point, and now all suffered the same impossible breaking. The same jaws, the same hips, the same teeth turning to dust. If it was bad luck, it was bad luck shaped exactly like a paintbrush. And here is the thing the doubters could never get past, the small detail that made even the loudest of them quiet down. When Catherine sat by the window in the late afternoon, she sometimes lifted her hand into a shaft of sunlight. She would turn her palm, and under the skin, faintly, you could see a softness in the bone, a pale shimmer, a glow that should not have been there. Her neighbors saw it. The doctors saw it. Tom saw it every night when he carried her up the stairs. You can argue with a number. You can argue with a newspaper. You cannot argue with a woman whose bones are giving off light. That was the gap in the skeptic's logic, and it was the size of a human hand held up to the sun. There came a moment, somewhere between the first lawsuits and the first headlines, when a few quiet doctors began to do something nobody had thought to do before. They began to photograph the women, not their faces, their bones. The procedure was simple enough. A woman would walk into a small room at a hospital or a private office. She would sit in a wooden chair, hands folded in her lap, and wait while the doctor closed every shade and turned off every lamp. The room would fall dark as a closet at midnight. Then the doctor would hold up a sheet of photographic film, the kind used for dental work, and press it gently against the woman's jaw, or her hand, or the long bone of her thigh. No X-ray machine, no flash, no light at all. The doctor would leave the film there for a few minutes, sometimes longer. Then he would slide it out, develop it in a tray of chemicals, and hang it up to dry. And there, on the wet square of film, would be the ghost print of a human bone, glowing, lit from the inside, as if the woman herself were the lamp. The women who saw these pictures did not faint. They did not cry. They sat in their kitchens with the prints spread out on the oilcloth and looked at them the way a farmer looks at a weather report. Calm, certain, a little tired. Grace Fryer kept one of her own pictures in a drawer beside her bed. She had stopped pretending. She knew what was in her. She had felt it for years, in the ache of her spine, in the soft places where her teeth used to be. The picture only confirmed what her body had already told her in a slow, patient whisper. Catherine Donohue was the same way. By the time the doctors showed her the glowing image of her own hip bone, she had already buried friends. She had already watched her own leg shrink and twist. The picture did not frighten her. It steadied her. It gave her something to hold up in court, something the lawyers could not wave away. There is a strange kind of peace that comes when the world finally agrees with what your body has been screaming. The women felt that peace. You can see it in the few photographs that survive of them from those years. They sit very straight. They look directly at the camera. Their dresses are simple, their hair pinned back, their hands resting in their laps with a stillness that almost looks rehearsed. It is not rehearsed. It is the stillness of a person who has already made up her mind. Speaking cost them. It cost them friendships. Some neighbors crossed the street rather than greet them, afraid the sickness was catching, afraid the company would notice who they talked to. It cost them money because the lawsuits dragged on for years and the medical bills kept coming. It cost them the small comforts of being thought of as nice young ladies, because nice young ladies in 1928 did not stand on courthouse steps and accuse rich men of poisoning them, but it gave them something too. It gave them a voice that did not waver. Reporters who came expecting weeping victims found instead a row of women who spoke in plain sentences, who said exactly what had happened to them, who did not flinch when the photographers raised their cameras. One newspaperman wrote that meeting them felt like meeting soldiers home from a long campaign. They had the same quiet, the same far-off look, the same refusal to dress up the truth. It gave them each other. In Orange and in Ottawa, the women found one another, sat together on porches and in parlors, traded the small remedies that helped a little, the warm cloths, the soft foods, the chairs that did not hurt to sit in. They became a kind of family of believers in a world full of men who still said the powder was harmless. And it gave them, in the end, something most people never get. It gave them the knowledge that they had been right, that their bodies had not lied, that the glow they carried inside their bones was real. immeasurable and exactly as terrible as they had always suspected. In the dark rooms, with the film pressed to their skin, they had proved it. They were lit from within like lanterns, and though no one yet knew what that light would mean for the country or for the war that was coming, the women themselves already knew. They had seen the picture, they had seen the bone, and they were not afraid to say so. The town of Orange, New Jersey, never quite forgot what happened inside its brick walls. You can drive through it now, see the row houses and the shops and the soft hills rolling toward the Watchung Mountains, and feel like you are passing through any small American town. But the ground under that town remembers. The soil holds what was poured into it, and the people who studied that soil decades later found things they could not easily explain. The old United States Radium Corporation building sat on Alden Street. It was a low brick structure, plain as a post office, with tall, narrow windows that caught the morning light. Behind it stretched a yard where the company dumped what it did not need: powder, sludge, broken dial faces, cracked crucibles still dusted with the green-white shimmer. Workers tossed it all into a pit and covered it with dirt, and the dirt went on living, and the rain kept falling, and the years kept passing. By the time investigators came looking, the building was long gone, but the land had kept score. Inspectors in white coats walked the empty lots with strange little machines that clicked and crackled in their hands. They pointed the devices at the grass. The grass clicked back. They pointed them at the foundations of houses built on the old factory grounds. The foundations clicked too. They pointed them at the dirt in flower beds where children played, and the dirt sang a soft, electric song that no one wanted to hear. The trees told a story of their own. Locals said the old elms behind the factory grew crooked, with bark that flaked off in long, pale ribbons. Some trees split down the middle for no reason anyone could name. Others put out leaves that turned yellow in July, months before the rest of the neighborhood. A man who lived nearby kept a photograph of his backyard maple. Its trunk bent like an old woman leaning on a cane. He swore that tree had stood straight when he was a boy. Builders had their own troubles. When new houses houses went up on the lots near the old factory. The foundations cracked within a season. Concrete poured smooth in the morning would show hairline fractures by the next spring. One contractor said the ground felt soft in places that should have been firm, as if something underneath was always shifting, always settling, never resting. He moved his crew off the site and refused to come back. The little creek that ran behind the property had changed course twice in 50 years. Old maps showed it cutting one way. New maps showed it curving another. The water ran clear enough, but the stones in its bed were stained a faint rust color, and the moss that should have clung to them refused to grow. Fishermen who knew the local waters said the creek held no minnows past a certain bend. The fish stopped there, as if a wall stood across the water that only they could see. Dogs would not cross the back lot. Cats avoided the basements of certain houses. A woman who lived on the next street kept chickens, and her chickens laid eggs with shells so thin they broke in her hand. She moved her coop to the front yard, and the eggs grew firm again. She never knew why. She just knew the back of her property felt wrong. The way a room feels wrong when someone has just left it in anger. Inside government offices, the studies of all this sat in locked drawers. Men in suits had measured the soil. Men in suits had measured the air. Men in suits had written reports with neat columns of numbers and quiet conclusions. And then they had filed those reports away in metal cabinets behind doors with brass locks. The numbers were not meant for the public. The conclusions were not meant for the families. The land was speaking, and the men who could hear it had decided to keep its voice in a drawer. Some of those drawers stayed locked for 40 years. Some stayed locked for 60. A few, people say, have never been opened at all. The mystery is not whether the ground remembers. The ground clearly remembers. The mystery is what the studies said. The mystery is who read them first, and who decided that no one else should. The mystery is how a piece of American earth, no bigger than a city block, came to hold a secret heavier than the houses built on top of it. The town of Orange goes on. The trees keep growing crooked. The creek keeps shifting its bed. And somewhere in a quiet drawer, the land's testimony testimony is still waiting to be read aloud. The strange thing about the Radium Girls is that their story almost never made it into a courtroom at all. And once you understand why, you start to see a pattern that runs through American history like a thin silver thread. The same shape, the same silence, the same workers somewhere glowing in the dark. Think about the match girls of an earlier age. Young women in factories across England and America, dipping wooden sticks into white phosphorus. Their jaws began to rot too. The doctors called it phossy jaw. The bone would soften and crumble, and in a dark room, the dying tissue gave off a faint greenish light. The factory owners said the work was safe. The doctors who spoke up lost their patience. The girls who complained lost their jobs. By the time the law caught up, 2 generations of women had already gone into the ground with glowing bones. That was decades before radium ever came to Orange, New Jersey. The pattern was already old. Look at the Hatters of Danbury, Connecticut. They shaped felt with mercury, and the fumes climbed into their blood. Their hands shook. Their teeth fell out. Their minds slipped sideways into a place from which they could not return. The town called it the Danbury Shakes, and folks made jokes about Mad Hatters, as if the madness were a costume and not a slow poisoning. The factory owners said the work was safe. The doctors looked the other way. The men who organized for better air were quietly let go. Look at the miners of Butte, Montana, coughing up the copper dust that lined their lungs like fine red velvet. Look at the textile workers in Lowell, Massachusetts, breathing cotton fiber until their chests rattled like dry leaves. Look at the asbestos workers in Manville, New Jersey, just a short drive from the radium factory itself. Same state, same decade, same story. The bosses said the white dust was harmless. The doctors had nothing to say. The workers got sick and were quietly replaced. In every one of these stories, a trial almost never happened. The companies were patient. The companies were rich. They had lawyers who could outlive any sick woman in a hospital bed. They had doctors on the payroll who would swear the illness came from something else. Bad teeth, bad blood, bad habits, anything but the work. The Radium Girls came within a breath of vanity. vanishing into that same silence. Grace Fryer spent 2 years just looking for a lawyer who would take the case. 2 years. Most attorneys turned her away at the door. They said the statute of limitations had already run out. They said the science was too new. They said the company was too big. They said she would be dead before any verdict came down, and they were nearly right. The lawyer who finally took the case was a young man named Raymond Barry. He had no money, no famous name, no army of clerks. He worked nights. He read medical journals by lamplight. He drove out to the homes of dying women and held their hands while they told him what the foreman had said about the powder being good for them. He filed the suit in 1927, and the company asked for delay after delay, knowing every month would carry one of the women closer to her grave. That is the quiet machinery that keeps these trials from ever happening. Not a single villain, not a locked vault of evidence, just time, just patience, just the certainty that a sick woman in 1927 could not afford to wait, and a corporation could afford to wait forever. The same machinery had worked on the match girls. The same machinery had worked on the hatters. The same machinery would work later on the uranium miners of the Navajo Nation, on the shipyard welders of Norfolk, on the chemical workers of Love Canal. The names changed. The poisons changed. The pattern held. Folks who study American folklore sometimes say this country has 2 kinds of ghosts. The first kind haunts old houses and lonely roads. The second kind haunts factories. The second kind is quieter. The second kind does not rattle chains. The second kind just keeps showing up in different clothes, in different towns, telling the same story to anyone who will listen. The Radium Girls almost joined that second kind of ghost. They almost slipped into the long American silence with the match girls and the hatters and all the others whose names nobody remembers. What kept them from vanishing was something small and stubborn. 5 women, 1 young lawyer, a little courtroom in New Jersey, and a question the company could no longer answer with patience alone. For a long time, the story of these women lived only in whispers. It moved through kitchens and church basements. It rode in the back seats of cars on the way to funerals. The papers said almost nothing. Then, in the spring of 1928, something cracked open. The headlines came slow at first, like rain that starts as a few quiet drops on a tin roof. By summer, the rain was a downpour. You can still find those old papers. They sit yellow and brittle in library drawers, smelling of dust and dry glue. The newsprint has gone the color of weak tea. The photographs have softened into gray ghosts. Even so, the faces look out at you with a stillness that feels almost alive. Grace Fryer in a dark dress, her hair pinned neat. Catherine Schaub with her chin lifted, like a girl posing for a school picture she did not want to take. Quinta MacDonald in a wheelchair, her sister Albina beside her. Both of them too thin, both of them smiling the smile of people who have already decided to be brave. The words around those pictures told a story the country had not been ready to hear. The New York World ran it first in big black type. The Newark papers picked it up. Then the wires carried it west. And by the time the train whistles blew in Chicago, every breakfast table in America had a piece of the truth on it. Dying women. A factory in Orange, New Jersey. A paint that drank the light and gave it back in the dark. The reporters wrote things the company men had spent years burying. They wrote about Mollie Maggia's jaw, lifted out by a doctor's gentle fingers. They wrote about the test tubes of bone shavings that glowed on a laboratory shelf. They wrote about the lip pointing, the little twist of the tongue, the powder swallowed 1,000 times without a thought. Readers in farmhouses in Iowa held their coffee cups still and read the same paragraph twice. There were photographs that did more than show faces. One picture, taken inside the studio years before, showed a long room with high windows and rows of young women bent over their work. The light came in slanting and soft. If you looked close, you could see the small jars on each table, each jar holding a thimble of paint that seemed to shine just a little brighter than the daylight. Nobody had noticed it before. After the stories ran, people noticed nothing else. Letters surfaced too. Some came from the women themselves, written in steady, careful handwriting on cheap, lined paper. Grace wrote to her sister about the pain in her feet, the way her spine had begun closing book. Catherine wrote poems on the backs of envelopes, small verses about light and the body and the long, quiet road. These pages got passed around. A few ended up in newspaper offices. Editors who had seen everything found themselves wiping their eyes at desks cluttered with cigar ash. Other letters were not so tender. Memos written between company officers got pulled into court and then leaked to the press. Cold paragraphs about lawsuits and liabilities. Notes about which doctors could be trusted to say the right things. A line plain as bread, suggesting that the women's illnesses might be blamed on bad teeth or loose morals. When those words appeared in print, the public mood shifted like weather. Sympathy turned to fury. The fury turned to subscriptions, and the papers kept printing. Objects came forward too, small and stubborn. A wristwatch a sister had kept in a drawer. A small porcelain dish stained pale green where the paint had dried. A hairbrush of all things, said to glow faintly in a dark closet long after the woman who used it had been buried. Reporters held these things in their hands and wrote what they felt. The weight of a watch, the cool slick of porcelain, the bristles of a brush that had once swept through living hair. There is a photograph from a courthouse hallway in Newark. 5 women sit on a wooden bench. Behind them, the wall is bare and pale. The light from a tall window falls across their laps. They look tired. They look like they have been waiting a long time. On the floor near Grace's feet, just at the edge of the frame, sits a small handbag. Inside that handbag, the story goes, was a vial of the powder itself. She had carried it to court as evidence, proof in her purse of the thing that had taken her bones. The settlement came in the summer of 1928. 5 women sitting in a courtroom in Newark finally got the company to agree. Each one would receive $10,000. Each one would receive a pension. Each one would have her medical bills paid. It sounded like a fortune in those days. It sounded like justice. But the women who signed those papers were already dying, and the lawyers knew it, and the company knew it, and the women knew it too. The newspapers called it a victory. The families called it something else. They called it a stopwatch. Because the moment the ink dried, the clock started ticking. company had calculated something cold and simple. The pensions would not last long. The medical bills would not stretch for years. These women had months, maybe a handful of seasons, before the radium finished its quiet work inside their bones. Grace Fryer lived another 5 years. Edna Hussman lived less. Each one spent her settlement on doctors who could not help, on soft foods she could still chew, on small comforts for the children she would leave behind. The $10,000 vanished the way snow vanishes in March, slow at first, and then all at once. But the story did not vanish. The story went home with the families. In houses across New Jersey and Illinois, the tale got passed down at kitchen tables. A grandmother would point to a faded photograph on the wall. She would say, "That was my aunt. She painted clocks during the war. She used to glow in the dark when she came home at night." The children would lean closer. They would ask what happened to her, and the grandmother would tell them, in her own way, what the radium did. Each family told it a little differently. Some families remembered the brush, the lip, the point. Some families forgot that part and only remembered the jaw. Some families kept the courtroom front and center. Some families folded the courtroom away and kept only the funeral. The story got polished smooth in some places and rough in others, like a stone passed from hand to hand in a cold river. In Ottawa, Illinois, the Donohue grandchildren grew up hearing about Catherine. They heard about the window seat in the courtroom. They heard about the way she could no longer walk, the way her husband had to carry her in. They heard about the small wooden box she kept in her lap, with the pieces of bone the doctors had taken from her jaw. She brought that box to court as evidence. The grandchildren grew up knowing that box was real, even if they never saw it. In New Jersey, the Fryer family kept a different artifact, a small pocket watch with a glowing dial. Grace had painted it herself back when she was 19 and proud of her work. The watch still glowed decades after her death. It glowed in the drawer where her brother kept it. It glowed through the cloth he wrapped it in. The family understood, eventually, why it glowed. They understood what had killed her. They kept the watch anyway, because it was hers. The settlements ran out. The pensions stopped when the women died. The company moved on to other products, other factories, other towns. But the families kept the names alive. They wrote them down in family Bibles. They carved them into headstones. They told the children, and the children told their children, and the story bent and shifted but never broke. Sometimes, at holiday tables, an older relative would say something the younger ones had never heard before, a detail dropped from earlier tellings, a name forgotten in the middle generations, an aunt nobody had mentioned in 50 years, suddenly remembered over a plate of mashed potatoes. The story grew again. It thickened. It took on new branches. And in some of those families, the question still hangs in the air. The question of what the company knew, and when, and how much they buried. The question of how many other women were quietly paid off in smaller settlements, with smaller papers, signed in smaller rooms, never making it to a newspaper. The question of how many graves across the country hold women whose names were lost before anyone thought to write them down. The 5 women in Newark are remembered. The women who came after them are remembered. But the families know there were others. There had to be. The factories ran for years. The brushes touched 1,000 lips. And somewhere, in some attic, in some shoebox, a faded photograph still waits. A young woman in a white smock, smiling at the camera, her fingertips faintly glowing in the lamplight. Step back for a moment from the courtrooms and the company doctors. Step back from the studies locked in drawers and the lawyers arguing over what a body is worth. Underneath all of it, there is a quieter truth. Something happened in those small American towns. Something real. And the women at the center of it did not all live long enough to say their piece. Mollie Maggia was the first to go. She never saw a courtroom. She never held a settlement check. She died in 1922, her jawbone gone. Her family told it was syphilis. The death certificate carried that lie for years. By the time anyone admitted the truth, Mollie had been in the ground a long time, and the soil above her had already begun to tick softly with the dust of her bones. She was 24 years old. There were others like her. Quinta MacDonald, Albina Laris, Hazel Vincent Cuser, Irene Rudolph. Names that show up in old factory records and parish ledgers, and not much else. Women who painted dials in a bright room and went home to small houses with porches and lace curtains. Women who married or planned to. Women who walked to church on Sunday mornings in good shoes. They did not live to testify. They did not live to be famous. They simply lived, and then they did not. The town of Orange, New Jersey, kept their memory in pieces. A photograph on a mantle. A handwritten recipe in a kitchen drawer. A wedding ring slipped into a velvet box and tucked away. The families did not always speak about what had happened. Some did not know the words for it. Some only knew that their daughter or sister or wife had come home one evening with a sore tooth, and that the sore tooth had been the start of something nobody could stop. The same was true in Ottawa, Illinois. The same was true in Waterbury, Connecticut, where another factory had hired another room full of bright young women. In every one of these towns, there were graves that came too early. Headstones cut for girls who should have been grandmothers. Empty chairs at holiday tables. A mother who still set out an extra plate without thinking, then caught herself and put it back. You can argue about the science. You can argue about who knew what and when, and whether the company men lied outright or only let the silence do the lying for them. The fights over those questions filled newspapers for decades, and they fill books still. But underneath, the argument is the simple shape of a loss. A community lost its daughters. The loss was real, whether or not anyone could name the cause out loud. There is a small cemetery outside Orange where some of the early dial painters rest. The stones are modest, granite mostly, weathered soft by 100 years of rain. Moss grows in the carved letters. In autumn, oak leaves drift across the rows and gather against the bases. In winter, the snow lies thin on the ground, and you can see the shapes of the plots beneath like old quilts laid flat. There is nothing here that looks dangerous. Nothing that looks haunted. Just a place where families came to grieve. And yet, if you stood among those stones with the right kind of instrument in your hand, the instrument would whisper back at you, a soft electric clicking, a sound like rain on a tin roof, only slower. The bones below still carry what the brushes gave them. The town has not forgotten, because the town cannot forget. The earth itself remembers. This is what the women left behind. Not only the lawsuit, not only the headlines, not only the laws that came later about how factories must treat the people inside them. They left behind a kind of memory that lives in the ground, a signal that does not fade in any human lifetime. A long, quiet sentence written in the language of physics, saying we were here. Whether the story has been passed down exactly right, whether every detail in every retelling is true, the shape of it holds. Young women went to work in a bright room. They were told the work was safe. The work was not safe. They sickened, and many of them died. And the ones who lived spent the rest of their days carrying the weight of those who did not. The community that grew up around that factory carried the weight too, still carries it. In the quiet between sentences, when somebody mentions a name from the old days, you can feel it. A small heaviness, a small light, the glow that never quite went out. Step out of the day for a moment. Set your feet down in a small American town in the year 1928. The street lamps are gas lamps. The cars are parked along the curb like sleeping animals. The houses sit close together, their porches dark, their windows soft with yellow light. You are standing on a quiet street in Orange, New Jersey, or maybe Ottawa, Illinois, or maybe Waterbury, Connecticut. It does not matter much. The mystery looks the same in every one of these towns. The factories sit silent for the night. The girls have gone home. Above you, the sky is the deep blue of river ice just before it cracks. A few thin clouds drift past the moon like torn lace. The stars come down so close you feel you could reach up and gather them in your apron pocket. The air smells of coal smoke from the chimneys and wet leaves from the gutters. Somewhere far off, a freight train moans across a trestle bridge. You walk past a row of narrow wooden houses. Their paint is peeling in soft curls. A cat watches you from a porch rail, its eyes catching the lamplight like two pale coins. You can hear the creak of a swing set in a backyard, moved by nothing but the breeze. The maples lean over the sidewalks and whisper to each other in a language older than the town itself. A window glows windows on the second floor of a small clapboard house, not with lamplight, with something stranger, a faint green shimmer, soft as moss, steady as a heartbeat. You stop on the sidewalk and look up. The glow is the size of a saucer. It floats in the dark of the bedroom like a small captured moon. That is a clock on a bedside table. A clock with hands painted in radium. A clock the woman who lives there painted herself back when she was 19 years old. She is sleeping now, or trying to. Her jaw aches the way it always aches. Her hip hurts when she shifts. But the clock keeps glowing, patient and kind, the way it has glowed for the last 8 years. It tells the time even when no one is looking. It marks each minute of her shortened life with a steady, silent light. Across town, another window glows, and another. The dials are everywhere, on nightstands, on mantles, on the wrists of soldiers home from the Great War. The girls painted thousands of them, tens of thousands. Each one carries a tiny piece of the same powder that lives now in the women's bones. You turn down a side street. The pavement is uneven here, lifted by the roots of old elms. A dog barks once from behind a fence, then thinks better of it and grows quiet. The wind moves through the high branches and sounds like the sea heard from very far away. You pass a small cemetery on a low hill. The stones are pale and crooked, leaning like teeth in an old smile. A few names there are already familiar. Mollie, Quinta, Albina. The grass around them is silvered with frost. If you stood close, in the deepest dark, you might see the faintest light coming up through the earth itself. Not enough to read by, just enough to know. The moon has climbed higher now. It pours down silver over the rooftops, over the church steeple, over the long brick wall of the factory where the girls used to laugh and dip their brushes. The factory windows are black. The big sign above the door is just a shadow. But somewhere inside, on a shelf in a forgotten room, a jar of powder still hums to itself in the dark. You sit down on the curb. The stone is cold through your coat. You look up again at that second floor window with its green moon of a clock. You think of the woman behind the glass. You think of how small she is, and how small you are, and how the sky above you both is so wide it could swallow a whole century without noticing. A breeze moves down the street. It carries the smell of wood smoke and the faint sweetness of someone's late apples falling in a yard. Somewhere a porch board settles. Somewhere a baby fusses and is hushed. The clocks keep glowing. The bones keep glowing. The stars keep turning. And the town sleeps on, not knowing yet what it knows, not knowing yet what it does not know, held gently under the great quiet wheel of the night sky. The story did not stay in Orange, New Jersey. It did not stay in Ottawa, Illinois. It traveled on quiet trains, in leather briefcases, in folders marked with red stamps. The government men came after the trials ended. They wore dark suits and soft hats. They carried notebooks bound in cloth, and they wrote in pencil so the marks could be erased if needed. They came to the small houses where the dial painters had lived. They sat in parlors with lace curtains and clocks ticking on the mantel. They asked the families if they could measure the bones. They asked, very politely, if they could take the bodies after death. Some families said yes. Some said no. The men wrote down both answers in the same careful hand. In the towns where the factories had stood, something strange began to grow. A kind of quiet pride mixed with grief. The dial painters had not been soldiers. They had not been miners or sailors or men in uniform. They had been girls in cotton dresses, eating sandwiches at their workbenches, painting numbers on watches, and somehow, without meaning to, they had cracked open a door that the whole world would walk through. In Orange, the brick factory still stood for years after. Children walked past it on the way to school. Their mothers crossed the street to avoid the shadow it threw on the sidewalk. The building looked ordinary. Red brick, tall windows, a flat roof streaked with bird droppings. But everyone in town knew. The bricks themselves were said to carry the dust. The soil in the yard glowed faintly on summer nights, or so the children whispered. Whether that was true or just a story, nobody could say. The town learned to live with both. In Ottawa, the old radium dial building sat on a corner near the river. Locals pointed it out to visitors, the way other towns point out a famous church. They told the story plainly, without drama. They said the names of the women who had worked there. They knew the names by heart, the way other places know the names of their war dead. Every spring, flowers appeared on certain graves. Nobody organized it. The flowers just came. A small statue went up eventually in Ottawa. A young woman holding a tulip in one hand and a paintbrush in the other. She stands on a low pedestal in a little park, her bronze face turned slightly upward, as if listening for something far away. Children climb on her. Old men tip their hats to her. On certain evenings, when the streetlights catch her just right, she looks almost wet, as if she has been crying and stopped. The town raised the money themselves. It took years. The government men kept coming back, long after the trials were forgotten by the newspapers. They measured the bones of women who had died decades earlier. They opened graves with the family's permission and took small samples and closed the graves again. They wrote thick reports that nobody outside their offices ever read. The reports went into locked cabinets in Washington. Some of those cabinets, people say, are still locked. The dial painters who lived long enough to grow old became a kind of strange royalty in their towns. Neighbors brought them soup. Reporters knocked on their doors every few years to ask the same questions. They answered patiently, sitting in armchairs by the window, hands folded in their laps. They showed their scars. They lifted their chins to show where the bone had been removed. They never seemed angry. They seemed tired, the way a person is tired after carrying water up a long hill. A way of seeing grew up in those towns that outsiders did not quite understand. People who came from Orange or Ottawa learned young that bright things could lie, that a shine on a surface did not mean safety, that a man in a clean suit could smile and still be telling you something untrue. It made the people there a little slower to trust, a little quicker to ask questions, a little more likely to read the small print on a label, even on something as plain as a bottle of milk. The government men finished their notes eventually. They went home to their families. They put their pencils away. But the towns remembered, and the towns still remember. The names of the women are spoken at school assemblies. The bronze girl in the park keeps holding her tulip. The bricks of the old factories keep their secrets, and the soil keeps whatever it keeps. the children grow up knowing that something happened here once that changed the way the country thought about its own working hands. There is a man whose name you may never have heard, though his work shaped the century. His name was Robley Evans. He was a young physicist at MIT, lean and quiet, with round glasses and the careful hands of someone who measured things for a living. In the late 1920s, he read about the women in Orange, New Jersey. He read about Mollie Maggia. He read about jaws that crumbled like chalk, and he could not let it go. Evans was not from New Jersey. He was a Californian, raised under wide skies and orange groves, far from the brick towers of the dial factories. But the story followed him east, the way a strange song follows a traveler home. He carried it into his lab in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He carried it into long nights spent over notebooks, the desk lamp glowing soft and yellow, the windows fogged with cold. He wanted to know one thing: how much radium inside a human body was too much. He spent years on that single question. He visited the surviving women when he could. He sat in their parlors with the lace curtains and the tin clocks ticking on the mantel. He listened. He took notes in pencil, gentle as a man writing down a recipe. He built machines that could measure the faint breath of radium leaving a living body. Devices the size of small cabinets, full of wires and dials, and the strange green hum of vacuum tubes. He learned the women by their numbers and by their names, both at once. By the early 1940s, Evans had a figure. He believed that 1/10 of a microgram of radium lodged in the bones was the highest safe burden a human could carry. Below that line, a person might live. Above it, the body would slowly come apart. It was a small number written on a small page, but that number traveled. It traveled west, all the way to a desert in New Mexico, to a town that did not appear on any map, Los Alamos. The men building the atomic bomb needed to know how much radioactive material a worker could handle before the worker began to die. They needed a line drawn in the sand, and the only line that existed had been drawn by Robley Evans, using the bodies of dial painters as his ruler. The women never knew. Most of them were skies over the sand at Trinity. They never heard the names Oppenheimer or Fermi, but their bones, measured and counted and graphed on yellow paper, set the standard. The plutonium workers at Hanford in Washington State, the uranium handlers at Oak Ridge in Tennessee, the men in lead aprons at Los Alamos. They were all kept alive, in part, by what the dial painters had suffered. Evans carried this with him for the rest of his life. He moved through the war years with the quiet weight of a man who knew where his numbers came from. After the war, when the government wanted to keep studying radiation, they came to him, and he, in turn, kept going back to the women. He helped start what was called the Center for Human Radiobiology, a small program tucked away in the hills of Illinois. There, doctors traveled the country looking for the last surviving dial painters. They asked permission. They measured. They listened. Some of the women said yes. Some said no. Some had moved far from the old factories, to Florida, to Arizona, to small towns in Oregon, where no one knew their history. They had married, raised children, buried husbands. They had carried the story across the country in suitcases and shoeboxes, in old photographs of girls in white smocks holding camel hair brushes. The legend traveled with them like a quiet companion, a thing they only spoke of late at night when the grandchildren were asleep. And in their bones, even decades later, the radium still hummed. Evans could measure it. The faint signal of Mollie Maggia's sisters, of Grace Fryer's co-workers, of Catherine Donohue's friends, still whispering through the years. The women had become, without ever choosing it, the first long study of what radiation does to a human life. They had become the ruler by which the atomic age measured itself. Robley Evans died in 1995, an old man in a quiet New England town. He had outlived nearly every woman he ever studied. He kept their files in cabinets, alphabetized, careful. The papers inside still glow faintly. The technicians say, the story does not stay buried. It travels with whoever carries it next. There is a small cemetery in Ottawa, Illinois, where the grass grows soft and green over the rows of stones. On certain afternoons, when the sun bends low and the wind moves through the maples, A visitor might walk these paths without knowing what rests beneath their feet. The names on the markers are simple: Catherine, Charlotte, Pearl, Marie. The dates are short, most of them ending too soon. The carved numbers worn smooth by decades of rain. But the bones below these stones are not like other bones. They are still working, still humming a song nobody can hear. Scientists who study such things have a quiet word for what lies in those graves. They call it activity. The radium the women swallowed all those years ago, the paint they twirled into points between their lips, settled into their bones and made a home there. Radium has a half-life of 1,600 years. That means half of what they carried is still there. And half of that will still be there long after every person reading their story has turned to dust. If you held a Geiger counter above their graves, the needle would jump. The little box would tick and chatter, the way it ticked in the hands of the government men who once stood over open coffins with their notebooks. The sound is faint, polite almost, a whisper from women who were told for years that there was nothing inside them worth listening to. Some of the graves were checked in the 1920s, some in the 1950s, some as recently as a few decades ago, when researchers wanted to understand how radium moves through a human body over the course of a long, long time. Every visit told the same story. The women were still glowing, not with light anymore, with something quieter, something the eye cannot see, but the instruments still find. This is the open door of their mystery, the part that never closes, because the question is not whether they were poisoned. We know they were. The question is not whether they were lied to. We know that too. The question is one that has no clean answer, and that is why people keep coming back to this story, generation after generation, like pilgrims drawn to a small flame. Who else knew? That is the door that will not shut. The studies the company men kept locked away. The doctors who signed the wrong cause of death on the certificates. The chemists who understood what radium did to bone marrow long before any girl in Orange, New Jersey, ever picked up a brush. The letters between executives that hinted at things, then vanished. The files that were burned, the conversations held in quiet rooms with the curtains drawn. How far back did reading reports about jawbones and anemia, and chose to say nothing because the dials had to keep glowing for the soldiers, for the watches, for the planes, for the money. We will never have a complete list. The records are gone. The men are gone. The companies changed their names, then changed them again, until the paper trail thinned out like smoke in a wide sky. What remains is the cemetery in Ottawa, the cemetery in Orange, the small stones in towns most people have never heard of, the bones that still tick faintly into the patient earth, and the women themselves walking through history not as victims, but as something stranger, something closer to witnesses. They carry the proof inside them. Their skeletons are the documents. Their graves are the archive. Long after the last filing cabinet rusts shut, long after the last memo crumbles, the radium in their bones will still be saying the same thing it has been saying for 100 years. We were here. This happened. Someone knew. There is a kind of beauty in that if you sit with it long enough. The lie tried to outlive them. The lie failed. The truth was sewn into their bodies in a way that no court, no company, no quiet handshake in a back office could ever undo. The women became their own monument, their own evidence, their own slow, ticking testimony. And so the story stays open, not because we want it to, because it has to. Somewhere tonight, in a small Illinois town, the wind is moving through the maples again. The stones are cool to the touch. The grass is soft. And beneath it all, faint as a heartbeat in another room, the bones of the radium girls keep their patient watch. Still glowing, still speaking, still waiting for someone to listen. So now the fire has burned down to a soft red bed of coals, and the night around us has grown deep and cool. The story is told, or as much of it as anyone can tell. The dial painters are gone. The factories are gone. The little brushes and the small white saucers of paste have all been buried or burned or sealed away in lead boxes that no one ever opens. And yet the glow, somehow, is still here. It lives in the soft hush of the towns where these women once walked. Orange, New Jersey, with its old brick streets and quiet yards. Ottawa, Illinois, where the river runs slow under bridges that have seen more than they will ever say. Waterbury, Connecticut. Old places where the trees lean over the sidewalks like they are listening. If you go to those towns now, you will not see anything strange. Children ride their bikes. Porch lights come on at dusk. The sky over the rooftops turns that soft purple that only October can make. Life moved on, the way life always does. But under the ground, the bones are still there. And the bones still hum their faint, quiet song. Not loud, not angry, just present, the way a candle is present in a window across a long, dark field. A reminder. A small, steady light that says, "We were here, we were here, we were here." That is what the glow left behind. Not poison, not fear. A kind of memory that the earth itself has agreed to keep. Soil holds it. Stone holds it. The bones hold it longest of all. And every now and then, a young person stumbles onto the story for the first time, and the glow finds another place to live. In their imagination, in the soft hollow behind their ribs, where wonder grows. The mystery, the real mystery, was never only about radium. It was about who knew, and when, and why they chose silence. It was about the locked drawer, and the polite letter, and the doctor who looked at his shoes. It was about the way truth can be buried, but never quite deep enough. The dirt always shifts. The grass always grows thin in one strange patch. Someone always notices. Someone always asks. And here we sit, all these years later, still asking, still wondering what those women knew at the end, still wondering what they whispered to each other across the long painting tables when the foreman stepped out for a smoke, still wondering whether, on the last night of her life, Mollie Maggia looked at her own hand in the dark and saw it shining back at her like a small, pale star. We will never know. That is the gift of these old stories, and the ache of them too. They give us just enough to imagine, and never enough to be sure. They leave a door open at the end of the hall, and a soft light spilling out from under it, and the rest is ours to dream. So close your eyes now, if they are not